We know you love us, but the information on our podcast is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice of any kind. If you or anyone you know needs professional help, please seek mental health services. Welcome to the Date Podcast, the show for anyone navigating the dating and relationship world. We interview celebrities, talk pop news, discuss dating do's and don'ts, and debate relationship topics. We are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and review if you like what you hear. Check out our website, datepodcast.com, for more information. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hi, it's Emma.
Hey, it's Zorric.
Host of the Date Podcast, and we're excited for another show today because we have one of our favorite guests back on.
Who is that?
It's Brian Howie from The Great Love Debate.
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Hey guys, how are you?
It's been
Good.
too long.
Too long. It's nice to be back in the Metroplex, as you people say.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about things, for example. Stuff. What are we talking about today, Emma?
Like our phase in life where we decide to maybe kiss a little bit more, date a little bit more.
Hoe
Go
phase?
out a little
Can
bit
you just say
more.
hoe phase?
Yeah.
Okay.
The hoe phase. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been on my third one so far.
What?
And
Right now, during COVID?
No, not right now. Not
Oh,
right
that's an interesting approach. Build up that immune system.
Build it up. No.
Give me all your germs.
Oh my gosh.
Ugh. Gross.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we'll talk about hoe phases, and then that's it, right? And we'll see what
Yes.
Brian's been up to. We haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. How's COVID been treating you, by the way?
I've been traveling a ton, oddly. So for me, it's sad how little my life has changed. I'm sort of socially distant most of the time anyway. I avoid other people, and I travel a lot always anyway. And it has been absolutely the best time to travel. The hotels are empty, basically.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
get them cheap. When the restaurants first did open, you get any seat you want. There's nobody in there. There's no crowds. It's been wonderful. I hope we stay in. The best thing is the cities that are 50% open or 25% open. It's delightful. Yeah. So I've been on the road doing some business stuff and doing some podcasting and things like that. But I've been to 18 states since we shut down. So I have a pretty good view on like where people are, masking and where people are, doing certain things. So it's sort of been interesting, as a social observer, it was pretty cool to go places.
What have people been saying about dating and masking?
Well, I have been, I've done a lot of press over the last 6 months. A lot of morning news wants to do a Zoom interview on like dating during COVID. What should they do? And my thing all along has been to advise people, just sit it out. Just don't do it. Yeah. Because anytime you're dating in an unnatural environment, whether it's spring break or on The Bachelor or in anything, you're tending to not quite get the real person that you're interested in, and you're doing it from a negative place. Either you're on the clock or you're not doing it naturally. So I think that relationships very rarely come out of those unnatural situations because they're not, allowing things to breathe or go normally. So I told people, like, spend the time working on yourself and get really excited about going back out there, which I think is going to be a good time. I think people, for the last 2 or 3 or 5 years, one-on-one dates has sort of gone away, and that sort of meet up, hang out. Nobody wanted to put themselves out there and ask anybody out. I think people are less likely to go out in these groups starting out. I think people are more interested in let's just go out one-on-one and move it outside. So I think it's a good thing for dating.
feel that this has helped.
Yeah, I think it will help.
Yeah.
I think people will be like, you know what, I want to start with one person and have a face-to-face conversation and go from there. I think that's a really good thing for dating. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I think it's just going to pick up. I know a lot of people are kind of ready to date. They're online, they're talking, but they want to go on dates and meet people.
Well, I asked somebody this on my podcast. Have you made, because we're going to get into the hoe phase, I guess, have you made physical contact with a stranger, meaning somebody you did not know in the last 6 months?
No, I have. Have you, Emma?
Accidentally, someone at work accidentally touched me, and I'd never met them, and I was just like, "Get away from me, Corona!"
Like, I shook a hand.
Yeah.
And it should be fine. They should be able to shake a hand, and if you don't like it, go wash your hand. It seemed so forward. It was like he grabbed my boob. Like he stuck his hand out. I was like, hey. And it was so unnatural, and I had to think about
it. If you don't have boobs, you don't know what it's like for someone to grab your
Yeah,
boobs.
it's even weirder when you don't. But it was so, because when I've had business meetings now, it's like, are we doing masks? Are we going to touch? And it's so awkward. It's been almost like dating. Even with people you know, it's kind of weird. So I've shaken.
I like shooken better.
I've shooken one hand in 6 months, and I like remember it. The guy was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He was very bold about it, and I'm like, "All right," but that's it. Like,
was he from here?
It was in Ohio, and that's just the way he was, and whatever. But not having physical contact with strangers, I think, is not good, and we have to. You know, Emma, are you color coordinating your mask with your outfit yet? Is it to that phase? Or is it just safety first? Fuck fashion.
She gets in a
What do you
bubble,
think?
hazmat suit, all that jazz.
Have you left?
What do you think?
Have you left the county?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I also work in a different county than where I live.
Have you left North Texas?
No.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, it's a long time. Most people are no on that, and it's a long time to get
Yeah.
it.
Well, the thing was, I was supposed to go to San Diego to go visit my best friend Shannon for spring break. And the day before I was supposed to fly out with my niece, like that got canceled. And then same thing with Florida, like something happened, and so we had to cancel that. And so like we haven't been out. Like I love hotels and I love staying in hotels. I'm like, I'm ready to stay at a hotel. Like, when can we go stay at a hotel? Because I'm ready. But
I know,
at the
you
same
never
time,
want to
like,
run the black light over the hotel anyway. So the hotels are probably pretty clean.
No, I already
But,
don't do that.
you know,
I love the illusion of,
There's a lot of illusion. We get on the airplane, you got to have your masks on, or we can't start handing out peanuts for then you take your mask off to eat the peanuts. Like, it's so ridiculous, some of the things that we don't think about, you know?
But what is the etiquette today? Because do you hold hands? Can you hold hands? Can you go in for the kiss? Does it?
I think once you decide to meet in person, because the conversation is for 2 hours is probably as risky as any other behavior that you're going to do. I think once you decide we're going to go on a date, you're jumping in that water together. Like, you can't go on a date and sit behind plexiglass unless it's prison visitation, you know? I mean, You can't make it seem like that. The question I have is, or I had, and I sort of have the answer to this, putting out there, I had COVID and I'm recovered, is not regarded as a plus. It's still people be like, you
it's like
had
an STD, right?
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, it's like a recovery. It should be like, I'm good. You don't have to worry about me. And people are like, I don't know if it's still in you. Like, it's a weird thing. People are asking that though.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Emma, we're getting derailed here. So God, let's talk about the news, and then, gosh, we can go for hours with Brian, but let's do this.
Okay, cool.
Ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to start with something that's like one of my favorite things. Brian, in all of your travels, have you watched Netflix's The Witcher?
I have. I'm very proud to say I have watched nothing besides news and sports for 6 months. Not one show, not one movie, nothing. I binged nothing. So no.
It's a good show, by the way. If you have time.
We're breaking up. I'm over this.
I have real ADD. I can't sit through 8 hours of anything.
Oh.
What about The Witcher, Emma?
All right. Much like Brian's like, meh. He's ruining everything right now. So today, Netflix revealed a few photos and looks for season 2 of The Witcher. Zorric.
I know, that's like one of my most favorite shows because, number one, it has who's the main star?
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
My gosh, beautiful, like English, hot man. Yum, delicious.
He's the hottest guy.
Who?
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
Superman?
Superman.
He was really good in that Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible, the last Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's Tom Cruise. So okay. Well, if he's in it, I might watch it because he is beautiful. My gosh.
So The
and
Witcher's.
he was also in Enola Holmes, and I only watched it for him, but it was really a cute movie. Okay. Anyways, but yes, they have released new looks, and oh my gosh, he has like a side profile with that beautiful like wig that he has on, you know, his like Targaryen white hair. Yum, delicious. And then he has another one of like his full body.
Can you put your shirt back on, Emma?
Okay, let me try. All right. They have also revealed the look for Ciri in season 2. She is starting to look more Witcher-ish, so more like Henry Cavill's character. So excited about that. And of course I have a caption that was like, somebody's been spending time with the Witcher, and it's like dun dun dun. So hopefully they'll be
Nice.
like posting pictures of like Yennefer, remember?
Yeah.
And all these other characters, because I feel like it was aired when it like the season ending. I just felt was like such a huge cliffhanger.
I think everyone's pretty in that show. That's why it's such a phenomenon. Like if you have hot people on a show, like no one's gonna turn it off.
Oh my gosh! Guess who was joining the cast on that too, though? Zorric. Remember how like at the beginning they're like, we don't want it to be like Game of Thrones, and honestly, like The Witcher is nothing like Game of Thrones, like nothing at all whatsoever.
Who? Tell me.
Okay, Christopher, and I'm not gonna say his last name because it's like Slavandic or something, and I don't know how to say it. But Tormund Giantsbane from Game of Thrones is going to be in this cast.
Oh, he's the red hair guy.
Yes.
Yeah. The awkward red hair guy.
Oh, yeah. I miss him so much.
Well, that's gonna be great. I like the show even more now.
I know. I'm so excited. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on. So, you know, it's interesting that it's just not humans that are finding love late in life. A lonely sanctuary created an online dating profile for this otter. And guess what? The otter has found love.
With a human?
No, Harris the otter has found love again with another otter.
Okay. That's okay then.
Yeah. So he had a partner, Apricot, and his partner died when the otter was like age 16, and so now he has found someone new.
Mm-hmm.
And they, like, I guess they get along really well. And like, it's to the point where the sanctuary is like creating more of like a love nest, a love sanctuary. I don't know what else to call it.
Well, I hope they fall in love.
And it just makes me feel like if otters can find love late in life, I can too.
I wonder if otters can get COVID. You know, I wonder if they care. They probably don't care.
Why are you trying to ruin this?
Yeah. Ton of problem. Yeah. Okay.
That's all I got.
That's it. So we talked about The Witcher and otters.
The Witcher and otters. I just thought it was so cute for the little otter to like find his soulmate late in life.
I think so too.
Aww.
I think so too. I think everyone needs love, especially you and me, Emma. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Nice. So that was it for today. Okay, so
that was it for today.
So today with Brian, which we're so excited to have him today, because he has like all the knowledge and wisdom about dating, and you know the world listens whenever he speaks about dating, and so that's why we're here. And so the subject we're going to talk about today is, which it's a phase that I've been in my whole life, and Emma said she's only been in this phase 3 times. It's called the hoe phase. So, Brian, what is the hoe phase anyways?
I tend to think that the hoe phase coincides with your drinking phase. You know, it tends to ramp up because when you're in a relationship, you generally don't go out and get shit-faced all the time with your partner. Maybe you don't. I wouldn't. I don't know. The point is that, no, we don't have to drink anymore. We found each other. But I think it ramps up during your I'm out party phase in the bars, and you tend to act like a hoe with that. Emma's had 3 of those phases. Is that accurate, that you tend to be out more during the hoe phase, or do you have your hoes deliver?
It depends.
Do you have them postmated over?
It depends.
You know, I mean, some people have been hoeing it up during COVID. I know that. Some people are like, I've never had. Well, especially the ones who, I know some people in New York, they had it early, they recovered, and then they were like on demand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have all the right
because
things.
back then, people were like, oh, yeah, they're good, you're cured, you're strong. So the hoe phase, you know, a lot of that is college. A lot of that is in your 20s. A lot of that is right after you got divorced. There's usually a trigger for it.
Yes.
You know, you can have a whole life, you know, but that's tough to sustain. So it's usually you're coming out of something, or there's sort of some external stimuli that is causing it. It very rarely has something to do with you just have a fired up libido.
Oh, it does or it does not?
It does not.
Okay, because that's...
I disagree.
I think the libido makes you, you know, it's not like I'm going to go out and drink. The libido, you should be able to satisfy that in your relationship, if you're in the right relationship. So the hoe phase is a little bit different. You know, the host phase is not necessarily about satisfying your primal urges. It's more about satisfying mentally, or you're insecure, or you're overly secure, or any of these kind of things. You know, I went through my probably peakest hoe phase when I was at the height of my sort of Hollywood powers, to not sound like such a douche, but you know, I was in my like early 30s as a director in Los Angeles. There are perks, and you know, what am I supposed to do with that information? Give it to somebody else? You know?
So that's interesting, because a hoe phase doesn't necessarily mean sex, right? But Emma, what does that mean to you, the hoe phase?
So, because mine has looked very differently in a lot of ways, and so a lot of times it just means that I'm gonna go out and flirt, or I'm just gonna go out and just make up with random boys, or you know, I'm just gonna like go dance and get hit on as much as I can when I go out. So it's just gonna look differently for a lot of people. But you're right, Zorric. It just doesn't. To me, it doesn't always just mean sex. I think you are like exploring other aspects that are not just sex.
Yeah, to me, it just means sex, because I've got out of a shitty relationship, and now I just want to meet people and be a hoe, I guess.
Yeah, which is fine. You know, some people, you want to, you know, what's the old phrase? You want to get over somebody, get under somebody else. Like that's
a good one.
You know, that's a lot of divorced men and women go through that, and they're trying to make up for lost time, or you know, I assume recently released prisoners probably have a little bit of a hoe phase. That's possible. If they have the means, you know. That's why I think COVID will not lead to that. So when we turn the lights back on to the world, people are still a little like, ugh, for a little while. So people are going to ease back into it. For a little while. I think people will ease back into it. You know?
So Brian, what does
all I know is that I have said that I'm ready to go back into my hoe phase. Like, I am at that point. I've told my girlfriends this. I'm like, when this is all over, when it's safe to go out, like, I need to go back and I need to be out.
So I was going to ask Brian.
Out with random boys again.
Yeah, you should do that. I was going to ask Brian, what does a hoe look like? So like, if I don't want, because I don't want to date a hoe. I want to be in a stable relationship. Or how does it?
What do you mean? Why can't you be in a stable relationship with somebody who is equally hoish?
I don't know.
See, I always look like this. If I want to date somebody who other people wanted, and the more desirable somebody is, the more opportunities that person was going to have, the more their hoe numbers are going to go up. You know, if you ask, go out with somebody who's let's use sex for the common denominator, who's had sex with 6 people, who's gone on 6 dates in their life, and they had sex with 2 of them. Okay? That's 33%. Or you go out with somebody who's been on 500 dates, and they've had sex with 20 of them. Well, that's, you know, 10% versus 33%. Comparatively, percentage of opportunities versus hoe action, the one who only had a couple dates is worse.
There's so much math going on here.
Right. So give me the one who went out with 500 people and only had sex with 20 of them. That's a lower percentage. Give me that one.
Huh. Okay. I think the first
You need a
calculation.
calculator?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, so.
Oh, jeez.
So
I don't judge anybody on what they did before me. I don't care.
But there's no look. You can't tell if someone's a hoe. A
lot of people play hoe. A lot of people look perfectly innocent. There's a lot of Amish hoes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of you can't tell at all.
Not even on a dating app, you can't tell if it's a hoe.
No, a lot of people talk a good game or a bad game. I don't think you can tell. And a lot of people get hoey with the right person in the right circumstance, and a lot of people do not. So I think every circumstance is uniquely hoe.
But then how does the hoe know it's is there an ending to the hoe phase? Is there like a peak, just like in COVID, there's got to be some peak and it goes to drops. Maybe they take a vaccine or something.
I think when your ego or your emotional needs have been satisfied, it tends to go down, because I think hoe behavior is really about something else. My ego got to the point where I'm like, I'm satisfied now. I don't need to do this anymore. And it's very liberating not to have to care. And you think about that. I'm like, there's a point in your life where you're like, I'm going to go out till the very end, and I got to find I'm going to go out till last call if I have to. Mm-hmm. And then when you're not in that phase, you're like, it's 10:30, I got a lot to do tomorrow, I'm just going to go home. Yeah. And you're aware of it. You're like, I'm not in that phase right now.
But as men, though, we don't lose that drive to, meet women, I don't think.
Meet? No, I think you always have the drive to meet a woman. I think what ends the hoe phase is the right hoe.
That's a good point, too.
And you're like, I found my hoe, I'm out. I'm done. Check, please. I think you're good. Oh, my gosh. I think the goal is to find the lifetime hoe.
But I think your first point was
for both men and women.
Okay, men and women. But I think your first point was maybe there's a hoe bucket list. Like you're saying, when you've gotten that satisfaction out of...
Yeah, you don't want to be married to some dude and he's like, oh, you know what, honey? I never had a redhead, and I need to go back out and take care of that. Ooh. So you need to check off a lot of different ages and body types and all that to know what you like. I think you need to do that, know? And I think once you have done that, you want to get to a point where you're like, I haven't missed out on anything. And I know what I like, and I want this hoe.
You basically have to have a bucket list of all the things that you want to have sex with or make out. Or
I think you want to be comfortable that you played out the whole hand. That's why that's tough to do if you get married at 23. At some point you're going to be like, wait, what is that? I didn't see that on the menu, and you're going to feel like you missed something.
But is there a right way to be a hoe? Or does it matter?
That's a good question. A lot of people. I've never been somebody who's like, I want to let's just go out and have fun. I don't want to get anything serious, because I always hoped to be in something serious. So I always looked like whatever we were doing, and if we were going out once, it was still part of the application process. Yeah. So I mean, some people tell themselves that as a defense mechanism. So they're like, if I tell myself and tell this person that it's just a fun thing, neither one of us will get hurt. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I ever buy that,
Yeah, I mean, because also there's a lot of feelings that are in play too when you're a hoe.
Well, you never want to feel like you were just the hoe's part of the hoe. Like the first time that happens to you as a man, the first time you realize that you were just kind of used, or I'm like, hey, you want to go get some brunch? And she's like, no, I'm good. Like, what? She's like, no, I got everything. I'm out here. And then you're like, oh, is this what the girls were talking about all along? Yeah. That they wanted more? And then it's really strange to go through. I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. You just wanted sex?
Is there a term for that? Like, if you're the one being hoed?
The hoey? The hoer? I don't know, but I remember going through it a few times, and I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, that's all this is. And I'm like, what? And it was very strange to me. And then you start going back in your head. I'm like, oh, that's what they were mad about. They wanted me to call.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more of that now, that people are either telling themselves or telling the world that they're not looking for anything more than fun and a good time. I don't believe most of them.
Yeah, and I think that can happen, like you said, after prison, number one.
Yeah, that's number one.
Number two, after a divorce. I actually went on a date with somebody after a 7-year relationship, and it was she was out a month at a 7-year relationship, and she probably just was definitely not in a relationship phase, right? She was in the hoe phase.
Yeah.
You were a rebound for sure.
Of course. So maybe it's called a rebound.
Yeah, you've been on the rebound. I mean, you don't want to be the rebound. You know, for a long time, I used to say that I'm really good rebound guy because I'll give you 30 days of fun and then I'm pretty much out anyway.
Yeah,
that's all I'm capable of doing. So I should have applied for that. Like, you want to be? I'll be your fair guy. Like, I'll be your side thing because then that takes a lot of the heavy lifting off of me. But after a while, you're like, no, I want a legitimate relationship. I want to find somebody. I want to do that. Hoes do grow up, or sometimes once they sort of satisfy whatever, you know, emotional need they have or primal urge they have. So I don't believe it's like, oh my God, this guy's been a player for 60 years. He's never going to change. I don't think Warren Beatty is the most famous player in the history of anywhere, and he's been married for 30 years now. He found Annette Bening, and he was ready, and they're still married. And he's 80 now, so I assume he's done.
Good for him.
So should I have awareness, Brian, that I am acting like a hoe? Like, should we be aware and stop that hoe-ness, or should we just continue with it?
I think you should always be aware of what you're doing, but most importantly, you should always be aware of why you're doing it. So if you're like, I just want to travel a lot this year and have a lot of fun and meet a lot of interesting people and kiss a lot of boys or whatever, that's great, but you have to sort of just always be aware of your actions and the reasons for your actions. Because if you're just, I'm going out tonight and don't think about it, and every Sunday morning you're waking up in a new bed, you have to sort of take a little inventory about, like, why does this happen, and why don't I, go back to the same person, or why doesn't this lead anywhere, or why do I feel like I have to do it again? Then you get into, there are people that I've known to be sex addicts, like legitimate sex addicts, and it seems brutal that they are just filled with this sort of angst and self-loathing and urges all day long for like 3 minutes of pleasure every few hours. Like, it's a weird thing to see and go through.
Yeah. So if Emma's in that situation and she's feeling like a hoe, she should really figure out what she's doing, or what she's
figure
missing.
out why she feels like a hoe. And the flip side of that is the same thing too. If you're just like, I'm just shutting it down for 2 months or 6 months or whatever, suddenly, and that's the problem with a little bit with COVID, everybody's shut down for 6 months. 6 months can turn into 6 years, because that becomes your normal and that becomes a lifestyle. And it's a lot to suddenly, you got very comfortable in your routine and your binges, and it's a lot easier to entertain yourself at home than ever before. Mm-hmm. That has cut down on a lot of hoe behavior because you don't have to go out to get your stimuli.
Yeah, it definitely. And I think COVID's changed the game too with being a hoe, because you can't really, can you still be a hoe during COVID? I guess you can, right?
Well, I mean, the hoe is related to the governmental restrictions. People clearly were partying when they're allowed to party. Yeah. It's not like, there's still a certain amount of people.
People were even partying when they were not allowed to party.
They weren't. I get it. So people are doing whatever sort of they're allowed to do, and you can always find people to do it with. So if that's what you want to do, I'm sure there's really no slowing down for that. It was more about, like, people didn't feel pretty because they hadn't showered in 6 days, so I'm not going to hoe. Yeah. When you're getting up and out of bed and brushing your hair every day, you're more likely to engage in some behavior.
Yeah, I think the hoe behavior in the United States is kind of correlated to the corona shutdown and also the economy, right? Because if the bars are closed, we can't be doing
As a
that.
man, it's probably a little easier to hoe around if you have a job. If you have some money, yeah. I mean, that probably helps.
That's true.
And a woman maybe.
So what I'm hearing from this conversation right now is that both of you could be hoeing around.
No, I think that sounds exhausting to me right now. That sounds awful. Like, oh my God. I had a long run. I had a long run of that, and I'm like, I'm out. I can't see doing that again.
Yeah,
I think I'm done hoe.
What about the people who want a relationship, like myself and Emma? How do we identify the hoe behavior? Or maybe I'm on a date with somebody and maybe she is a hoe. Is there something I can ask?
You should say good for you. Makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Is there something you can ask to identify the hoe?
Are you a hoe? Maybe, I don't know. Be direct.
I don't think it matters. It only matters what they are with you.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people, you know, are hoes, and no offense to our hoe listeners out there. You know, God bless all of you. A lot of people act a certain way because they haven't found a certain something. I said this earlier today. A lot of people are like, I love to travel. I always want to travel. Well, a lot of people love to travel because they haven't found a reason to stay home. And so home seems stagnant and boring. And a lot of times if you find the right person, you might not travel at all. Or you might travel with that person. It doesn't. So whatever your life was like before you met the right person, you can change anything, you know?
Is that why you travel a lot, Brian? Because you haven't met the right person yet?
No, it's because I have to work for a living to afford the right person. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm rarely just like on a vacation. So I think that's it. I think that a lot of people did, you know, I don't think you should judge somebody hoed around his or her sophomore year in college, you know?
No, for sure. I mean, I really feel like the only time that I can have an opinion about it is if it's directly affecting me. So if I'm married and someone else comes around and sleeps, you know, like my husband sleeps with, you know, someone else, and like that directly affects me.
I don't think that's hoe behavior. That's just flat out infidelity. You know?
Right. What, do you understand what I'm saying? No? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, but if you're in a healthy relationship, generally your spouse will not do that.
Generally.
Generally. Right. So it's like, honey, are you hoeing again? You have a marriage problem. It's not a hoe problem.
That's a big problem.
Yeah, you have a communication problem. You know, you've heard me say before, everything comes down to communication and confidence. So if you're having the right kind of communication with a non-hoe or a reformed hoe or a current hoe, people, you know, move forward together and you can sort of find out whatever both of your needs are.
Yeah, I think when you're also in that phase too, it's about your friends, right? Because your friends are the ones that'll tell you, hey man, you're acting kind of weird. You're acting a little hoish. You know, hoe that down a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always judgmental in a circle. Guys are less likely to judge it because they're more likely to be envious of it.
Oh,
but
that's a good point.
You know, but women will probably also be envy of it too. But I know some women that are like, oh my God, she's just hooking up with the worst guys, and it makes everybody notice like she's a mess. She has self-esteem issues. She needs therapy. Like women are more likely to judge the reason. Men are more likely to sort of look at the behavior and not care about stuff like that. But, you know, it does seem rightly or wrongly a little sadder when the woman does it. And that's probably terrible to say and not right to say. It just does.
That is. And it's such a different perspective between men and women, right?
I know.
The boys are, I'm high-fiving.
I'm going to leave this episode now.
Well, no, because the women do tell us that they're about emotions and they have no... You've trained the men to judge the women this way. That you're more substantive and you have more depth and layers and so all these kind of things. So you're not...
Yeah, we do because our brains hemispheres are actually connected. Yours are not.
Okay, right. So when you're doing things, if they're happening for opposite reasons, which they may be, we can look at them oppositely, you know? If they are different, why can't we admit they're different? So it's not, I don't look at it like, oh, it's an unclean thing or anything like that. I look at it like she might be a bit of a basket case right now, but so might I, you know? So who knows?
You know, I think we should flip this on its head. I think hoeing is good. I think maybe it's
having the hoe phases in your life is absolutely good.
Yeah,
you
why
need
not?
to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to let loose. You need to do things without inhibition or judgment or feeling bad about yourself. It's absolutely a healthy thing to go through. But you always, again, have to be aware of what you're going through, not necessarily at the time, but afterwards, or like, God, that was a nutty 4-year period, and then, you know, move on or do it again.
Yeah, and then I know we all have those friends that got married when they're 21 years old. They've never had another partner ever, and then they get divorced at 30, 35. And so...
Yeah.
And this is kind of turning into something more of like experiencing relationships than hoeing, right?
It is, but on the hoe thing, it's easier for the woman who just like, I'm going to go hoe it up to hoe it up. There's some guys like, I want to hoe it up, and There ain't no hose for them.
Beggars can't be choosers.
I know. So it is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know a lot more 40-year-old male virgins than female virgins. Put it that way.
Oh, goodness.
Really?
Yeah, a lot. Way more. It's not even close.
But Brian, it's why is that it's so easy to get for women to just hoe it up than us? I mean, is it just
that our standards are lower?
Humans?
I think that a woman is still, generally speaking, reasonably attractive. The old "there's no bad pizza" kind of thing. Guys can be fucking gross. So I don't know.
So y'all are like Hawaiian pizza?
I don't mean Emma. You could be like, there's some guys that you're just like, that thing is not going near me, right?
Right.
Guys are like, right. The right lighting and alcohol, we could probably work something out.
Yeah. You notice that the lights just came on, turned off. But you notice that women, they have the pick of the litter, right? Friends of mine have like hundreds and thousands of matches, and then my buddies, we have like 2.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. That, if we grabbed your Tinder, Emma, or your Bumble, whatever it is, and we started swiping to the right, almost every guy that you swiped on either had already swiped yes on you or just hadn't seen you yet. For the guy, it's like, no, it's not. The ratio is not nearly that high.
So we're can attest to that because he actually was swiping for me for a while.
Yeah, it was just like bing, bing. It's like every swipe right was a match.
Yeah, it was a match.
And he said that what did you say that you got tired of?
Oh, I got so tired. It was like 30 messages, like going back and forth.
So going in like, I like that guy, this guy, I'm sure he'll like me, or he hasn't seen me yet. That's a pretty big advantage if you want to go hoe it up.
Mm-hmm. And that's very easy. It's easy for women, right? It's much easier because they get all the matches.
It's easier to do it, but I think it takes a heavier toll on them. Mm-hmm. They can. I put out a list the other day of the top 5 cougar cities.
Okay.
Dallas, Texas was number 5. And and the reasons for doing it in each town or whatever, and it never really satisfies them. It is sort of a sad existence because they're doing it for reasons that are not healthy and positive. And there's a lot more of that recently. There's a lot more older woman, younger man. It rarely works out long term, so don't send in your outliers to here. Like, no.
Zorric, I think we need to go find some women for you.
An older woman?
Right, but it won't work out long term. Like, even the women who are like...
That's fine.
You're dating this younger guy, and then one day you wake up and he's married to Mila Kunis,
Well, how old is the gap you're talking about?
I think 15 years.
15 years, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of them are like, oh, I'm having a fun time with this 24-year-old, and they convince themselves that it's really just a fun thing. Eventually they get hurt. Because eventually he wants to play with somebody his own age,
So, as a man, if I want to go into this hoe phase,
how if
I'm attempting to and it's not working, his car's not starting, what do we do? Where do we go?
American Express Black Card.
Oh my goodness!
That's what I mean.
We have one of those?
No, I mean that is like the easiest path to male hoedom.
Oh my
if you're not, Henry, what's his name?
Cavill.
If you're not Henry Cavill, is cash, cold hard cash. You buy the drinks, you do the whatever. Like, that is the great equalizer in it.
Mm-hmm. But why? Why is that? Why,
Emma? Why is that?
Why is it?
Why do you guys care about the
money?
Cash? Because you can make your own money. We hear that every day.
I mean, I can, but it doesn't mean that I want to.
I don't know why that is, but it is still to this day. It matters if you're the guy who owns the boat, or it's his house at the house party, or whatever you want to do, and you're not, Mr. 28-year-old stud. Like, that is the great evener. See, a lot of women, you'll be like, oh no, I just want a guy to make me laugh. That's hard to pull off in a loud bar.
No.
It's hard to make people laugh in a nightclub environment.
I mean, I just put it out there. I would like to work for fun, not because I have to. So, taking resumes, people.
There you go. And that's very honest. And that, but then a lot of men, either the ones who have a ton of money It'll be like, she only likes me for my money. And the ones with no money, it'll be like, I can't have her. And so that doesn't really work either.
What do y'all want? Honestly,
I agree. That's what. No, that's honest. I mean, I don't know. It's sort of.
I mean, I'm not a gold digger, but I'm like half a digger.
I agree. No, I agree with that. I think the guy should be able to pay for whatever she wants. I get that, but I'm not most.
Well, if money is so important, why is it not on people's dating apps? They never say that.
They do in Florida. Like certain places we go, they're just flat out like, it doesn't matter if you have a jet, but you better have a boat. Like it's on there. Like we do shows in like Palm Beach County. They are open about what their needs are. Like, do not apply if you don't have this. You know what? You've heard a lot of women say like, I need a certain credit score, I need a certain job, I need a certain level of education. They perceive that as he's going to be successful and make some money.
Mm-hmm. Zorric, can we put this on our foreplay team profile?
Yeah, it's a team dating app that we're doing.
Someone no hits must have a jet, and the other person must have a boat.
no hits yet, but you're right. I know like some of my friends are kind of low key. I want a guy with 6 figures, and that's all I want.
Yeah,
and she'll judge definitely his job for sure.
We also have to, but you also have to think the guy who's really rich has a lot. He can find somebody just like you tomorrow if you're not exactly what he wants, and vice versa. You want that really hot girl? She's got a lot of choices. Mm-hmm. You know, the commodity for the women generally is the looks, and the commodity for the men generally is the money. And so I go out with a girl. My friends say, "What does she look like?" You go out with a guy. Your friends say, "What does he do?" And that's the difference. And it's always been that way. It's still that way.
So how do we indicate that on our profile? Should we just flat out say, I got a boat? I have a plane?
Yes. If you say or you have a picture of you on your boat and it looks like your boat, they're going to say, is that your boat? And when you say yes, you want to go for a ride? You're all right. A metaphorical ride or an actual ride. Yeah. You know, and if you put on your profile, I'm going through my hoe phase, some will run, some will not. I don't know.
Yeah, what we're finding here is that you need money to be a hoe as a man.
It helps, or really a lot of looks.
Good-looking man, too.
Yeah, you either got to be a real good-looking dude, because you could be an aspiring musician, really good-looking, and or have guitar skills. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah.
Or you better have some cash.
Yeah. And I think now, since everyone's at home on dating apps, I think all the good-looking people are all on the app. So I think it's even harder. It's even harder today, I think.
Than what?
Than before, than pre-COVID. I think dating is harder today than sometimes.
Well, we're not out of it yet.
Yeah.
So it's tough to, but like you have to judge, March 2021 to March 2020. I think that the single biggest problem with dating or challenge for dating is not COVID. It is not Me Too. It is not anything that has been Donald Trump. How somebody feels either way about Trump. You used to be able to date somebody for 6 years. You wouldn't even know how they voted. It just wouldn't even come up. People would be married. They didn't even know how each other voted. People want an answer on where you stand on Trump, pro or con, before the appetizer comes. Like they want it right away.
This is what you're hearing everywhere?
Everywhere.
All cities?
All cities.
Remember,
here, I mean, it depends on if they prefer pro or con, but where people stand on, and they couch it in other things, like, what do you think, how you voting? They're really trying to find out how you feel on Trump. And how you feel on Trump has been it has led people to not go on dates that they would normally go on, or not go because they suspect you might feel a certain way about it. It's the single biggest thing.
That's a good point.
Well, Zorric, remember, Julie from Foreplay said that she had gone on a date, and she mentioned that she had asked either way, and just depending on the answer, she didn't get into it, but she was just I knew at that moment that
it's subtle questions.
Subtle questions, and you would never before be like, how do you stand on Roe v. Wade on your first date? It just wouldn't come up, and it wouldn't come up on you wouldn't talk about the Iraq War. You wouldn't talk about these things. The Trump thing hovers because the people want to know, and certain cities we go to, they're like, I am not dating some liberal. And a lot of cities we go to, they're like, no Trumpers, just flat out on the profile, you know? And you see both sides of it, and you see both kinds. So I always have to adjust, even when we do the Great Love Debate and I travel around, I have to adjust some of the jokes or some of the references depending on what city we're in. Like, you can't even make any sort of Trump joke in a place like San Francisco or New York. You can't even bring it up. It just sucks the air out of the room. Down in Atlanta, they show up with the MAGA hats on at our shows, like just flat out, you know? So you got to know your audience.
Definitely. And so I've been on 2 dates since the debate, and that has come up twice.
Yeah, it's so all day, every day, people are obsessed whether you're a lunatic Trumper or you're a Trump derangement syndrome person. There's very few, like, so even when I say, like, you know, I don't care that much about him personally, he owes me money personally from way back in the day, but I honestly, I don't care that much about it. I don't think it affects my life day to day. When you even say that, they are like, what do you mean? Do you not care about kids in cages? What's wrong with you? Like, you can't even say, I don't care. You have to take a stand one way or another, and they need to decide that question's like a referendum on what kind of human being you are. It's fucking crazy.
Oh, it is. It is. Has this been worked into your show now? I mean,
yeah, I bring it. I bring it up a lot because a lot of people are like, I would never, especially guys when they say it, they're like, I would never date a Republican woman, and I'm like, I could line up 1,000 Republican women, and you would kill to date every single one of them.
That is true.
Like, you're like, you're wrong, and you're giving away good opportunities or whatever, and vice versa on all sides of it. And I'm like, I don't think it defines who you are. I think people have a lot of different reasons to do a lot of different things. It doesn't say anything about your case. It doesn't. It just doesn't. And people get mad when I dismiss it as a dating reason, but it's like number one now. It's like the number one thing people determine who they're going to date is political affiliation. Like, it's insane. OkCupid added a thing to, like, put it as a badge on your profile.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
So not only do I have to have money, I have to be on the right side of that person.
Well, for half of the people, no, you can just hoe it up with the other half.
I guess.
But it's harder to, you got to sniff that out.
Yeah,
like
doing percentages
like
again.
I had this argument with the marketing department at OkCupid. I even did a thing on the podcast about it where for a while they're like, add Black Lives Matter to your dating profile. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, I think people want to know how you stand. I go, putting it on your profile doesn't mean how you stand. It just means you want to put shit on your profile. You could, just because you don't put it on doesn't mean you don't support it. And there's a lot of other I'm like, you're just basically saying, like, I'm very, sort of virtual signaling woke person who wants to put it out there. I don't think that means anything. And they're like, we've got really great testing on this, and it really makes people engage with their own kind. I'm like, that's not their own kind. It means they have one thing possibly in common out of a million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not picking a side here, but let's say Trump does not get reelected. Does dating go back to how it was?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just I think, quiets the noise. It won't be all day, because I'm going to get a little... I also host a political show, so I have to say
Here
this.
we go.
Biden, pretty much, based on his career, will pretty much move to the middle. And it just won't be part of a daily conversation. And a lot of the people on the right are like, no, we're going to be really fired up. I don't think you are. I think you're not. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So that's really, I'm like, we have, a few more weeks to get to the election, and then COVID will be over in November 4th.
Is that true?
That's what I've always believed, yes.
I'm just going to keep drinking wine now.
Suddenly we're fine. Oh, suddenly we're fine,
Goodness.
Everything is politicized, including dating. And I think that you really got to love Trump to not want the quiet, just not want this all day, every day. Some shit comes up. Like, it's just awful. And that does trickle down to dating because people are so ramped up and they're so agitated, and they're, the debate made people so mad. It had to be tough to go on a date without it being part of the date. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to go out and say, like, you want to do a shot? Like, you want to drink? You want to have fun? You want to play pool? You want to do something fun? And it's not like, what did you think of Trump? And then you're like going down this angry rabbit hole. It's a hard way to date.
It's a question. I feel like it's a loaded question too. You can't win,
You can't win either way. I know. Because then you're both going to either say you both hate Trump, you're going to talk about how much you hate Trump, and that's not good dating talk.
No. So aside from Trump, so COVID is a big deal right now with dating. Is that going to change how we date after COVID's finished? Like hands or handshaking or kisses or?
No, I think though that we will be. Have you guys been to Asia or whatever ever?
Ever, yes.
They have. They've always, like, the masks in their culture is pretty common, but it was like, I don't feel well, I'll put the mask on. And you can sort of identify that. That's the sort of smart way to do it. When you go to an airport there, they do the body scan for the temperature. They're a lot more virus germ culture than we are. I think that people will be a little bit, it'll take a while. Like now, you hear a cough, somebody might as well be waving a gun. Like
yeah.
that. It
Sniffle
freaks a room out. I think it's
Yeah.
going to take us a while to not be so on edge about germiness. But I think once a bar is open, 2 glasses of wine, and nobody remembers anything about COVID.
Yeah.
And that's why, we criticize, like, it's so stupid that we're shutting the bars down at midnight. Like, what, is COVID stronger at 1 a.m.? No, your likeliness to make out is higher at 1 a.m.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's really what it's about. It's like, when does the bad behavior start? Mm-hmm. It usually doesn't start unless it's Emma at happy hour. It usually doesn't start till late. So that's the thinking behind
It's
it. Which I
actually
kind
really
of
true.
Yeah.
I've been in Vegas quite a few times over the last 3 months. And the thing about Vegas is the nightclubs are closed. There's no shows. Everybody is on the casino floor drinking, like just packed in this one big room. Ugh. It's hard to suddenly make out next to the blackjack table. Like, it's a weird environment for that. Mm-hmm. So the behavior is different, even though people are still drunk.
Yeah. And also, I think it's kind of ingrained in my mind when I go on a date I'm thinking, is the chef coronavirus? Is she just lying? Because some people go to work sick.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. It's just I think about it all the time now. So I think that's how it's changed me. Like, it's always on the mind.
What, the coronavirus?
Yeah. Is she sick? I don't want to get it. I have.
She could be insane, and you don't want to get that either. Like, I mean, like, there's 100 things. Like, of all the things that people are going to bullshit you about, that's like 400th. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't worry about that. Or all the things that you could end up getting hurt by a date, catching COVID from them, you're more likely to, like, be emotionally wounded from them than anything else. So I don't, at least if you think about it rationally, you know, I don't think, like, oh my God, if I go out with this person, I might end up dead. Like, that's probably not happening for most people.
Yeah. I went on a date with somebody early COVID, and she was early COVID, BC, borderline. And she said she got coronavirus, and I was kind of weirded out about it. She was a flight attendant for American Airlines. Oh, maybe not. Yeah. Some airlines.
American Airlines.
Yeah, American Airlines. And it was just, there was like this stigma still about, coronavirus.
Yeah. Zorric called me freaking out. Like, freaking
I was like, oh shit, she just told me.
Hilarious.
But people have all kinds of physical things. Somebody could have lupus or Crohn's disease or this or that or whatever. We're going to have to get used to each other's shit and germs and all that again. Mm-hmm. We're probably, because people like Emma are in a hermetically sealed bubble most of the time, that's really bad for your immune system. Like, we really do need to be sharing germs and all that. That's why they're saying that the parents who have 2, like, 6-year-olds are far less likely to get COVID or anything else because they have such tolerance. Like, the school teachers are not going to get sick because they're riddled with germs all the time.
Okay,
it's like the way. It's like the way
I am back at work and I am around a bunch of kids.
Good, you should be fine. It's like. Do you know why the homeless population has not just been? They don't sanitize, wearing sanitizer. They're not wearing masks. They're certainly not social distancing. Do you know why there's not huge populations of either homeless people or prisoners dropping dead?
Why?
Because their immune system is so jacked up all the time. It's always in survival mode, and they're always around that they have such a. Because I talked to some homeless people about this, and they're like, "You think a cold is? We wouldn't even notice it." Wow. They're like, "I'm not going to even notice something like that." Like, they're always dealing with their body's always fighting cold or hunger or everything. So
I'm glad you got your MD during this too.
That got out my what?
Your MD.
Listen, you can ask a lot of, can I get in my Dr. Fauci rant? And he went to my college, so we have the same education.
Can we hear something about him? What do you?
Well, here's my thing on him, and he's a nice man, and he's dead. But he has been a 40. He's our highest paid government official.
How much is
$450,000 a year. He makes more than the president. Nobody in the entire federal government made more than him. He has had the same job for 42 years.
Wow.
And his job is schmoozing and paper pushing and fundraising. He has not been an actual doctor in decades. So the fact that he's he's reading papers just like everybody else. He's not in the back room with the test tubes either. So that's why a lot of times he's getting shit wrong all the time, because he's just like, I'll go with what that guy said. I'll go with what that guy said, He doesn't believe in masks. He doesn't. He's a political person. Back in the day, he openly admitted that he had to convince the general public that they were at risk for AIDS. Because if he didn't, and it seemed just like a gay thing or a drug thing, the funding wouldn't have happened. So he's like, I had to make that argument. And he's done the same thing on this a lot.
Well, I've had friends who worked with AIDS, like therapists and social workers, and they have told me that a lot of times, when men are having affairs and they come back and sleep with women, women do become affected.
Right. A woman couldn't get it from a guy who had gay sex somewhere. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, you guys aren't old enough. Because I was in college then, they convinced.
Were we alive?
No, probably not. You were. They convinced us.
Who Zorric was?
They convinced us that it was equally dangerous for everybody. So when but the kids are getting it, and it's equally dangerous for COVID, when it is absolutely not. It's the same playbook that Fauci and Birx and all the AIDS people rolled out then. Because if we didn't convince everybody of that, I understand the mindset behind it. Well, nobody would take it seriously. It was just an old fat person's, worry. Then of course nobody's going to pay attention. So I understand the politics of it, but you're not fooling me.
But Fauci is so beloved, right? I mean, he is America's sweetheart.
A little bit he's beloved because part of his branding is he's America's top infectious disease specialist. He's probably not, but that's part of his business card. And he pushed back on Trump early on, so that made him the sweetheart.
But he is it seems like a sweet guy.
You can be a sweet guy. I don't think I don't think he's one of these people he wants to make money off vaccines. I don't think he does. I think he understands how to play the game and put out information for a broader thing. So when he's we don't know who's at risk and we don't know, he knows. The numbers are because the rest of the people in the Fauci position in the other countries, they're laughing at us. They're like, the Americans are nuts on how they're dealing with this. And it is politicized, and he's part of it. Again, it doesn't mean he's a bad guy, but it just means I don't know if he should be our go-to.
Do you think he's single, Dr. Fauci?
No, he's married for a long time.
Okay, because I think Emma would love Dr. Fauci. If we can set that up,
No, he's been married for 60 years.
$400,000.
But he loves the attention. He loves the press. He's a bit of a media whore, and
he's everywhere. Yeah.
So but
that's Dr. Fauci.
That's Dr. Fauci.
I feel like your rant is just a little bit of envy on him too.
Do I want to be Dr. Fauci? No, I don't know. I just he has professionally, openly, for 60 years said, do not wear masks because they're going to make you less likely to distance. And I've noticed that too. People with his whole the three wise people of the COVID, not to get out of the dating thing, Birx, Adams, and Fauci, all three were anti-mask, and all three for different reasons. Fauci was anti-mask because he thought it made people less likely to distance, which was true. Birx was anti-mask because she thought the amount of times people will touch their mask is just you're putting germs on your face. She's very against touching your face. And Adams, who's the Surgeon General, he thought the masks will actually make you sick. So all three of them, until June, not only were no, we're not sure about masks, they were no masks. And because I noticed it all the time, because I go to Asia a lot, I'm like, well, they do the mask. Why aren't we doing the mask? And they were just very open. And then suddenly, when Trump was masks sucked, the world was like, oh, if Trump thinks they suck, they must be good. And then everybody got bullied into the mask thing. Like, they might help. They probably don't hurt. That's my feeling on it. But when the narrative began, like, mask will save everything, well, now people are walking around loudly talking, laughing, coughing, and like, oh, I got a mask on, I'm good. And the mask is like a 10-cent piece of cloth made by somebody making 5 cents an hour in Asia. Like, it's not, I think it's made people more, because I've flown before, instance. When I flew and there was no mask ordinance, people were quiet and they were nervous and they were like, I'm just going to sit in my seat and hope to get through this. When everybody has masks on, people are like, oh, we have masks, we're fine. And they're just yucking it up and coughing all over the airplane. It's crazy.
So at your shows, do people wear masks or is it optional?
I haven't had one yet.
Oh.
Tomorrow's the first one since. It's up to the venue and the city.
Okay. So when we show up, should we wear a mask?
You will be required to wear a mask until you're seated, which is ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to let it, and then if you order food, you can take it off to eat your food. Just like anywhere in the country. As long as you're walking around with a bottle of water, you can drink. So it's up to the city,
So this is your first show in a while.
Yeah.
Have you kind of gathered some new data on like what's going on in the world?
I do, but I gotta sort of feel the room, and it's always sort of about the city. Like I kind of don't know how out people have been here. I thought Dallas was sort of like the rest of Texas, and it was like, COVID, that's a Yankee thing. But no, Dallas is taking it pretty seriously, just like every other city.
Yep.
But we have people itching to come out. We have a pretty good crowd coming. So, you want them to laugh. You want them to have fun. You want them to have a hoe phase. So I hope the hoe phase starts tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
We will be the spark that starts the hoe.
Nice. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the hoe phase, which is great, right, Emma?
Uh-huh.
We learned so much about...
It's been very entertaining.
Very interesting because I didn't know that, obviously you need money. And it's still the same thing. Like, even the women tell me, oh, it doesn't matter about money. Money matters. So whether or not you're a hoe or not, money is going to matter.
Money always matters.
Money always wins. What did you learn from Brian today, Emma?
I tuned him out a lot. I'm just joking. I just wanted to see what he would react.
I guess I don't have enough money.
Yeah.
If I just sat here waving a American Express Black card,
that's what it is.
It's like a dog treat.
That. I guess Brian doesn't have enough money for
I don't have enough money to have this
lifestyle.
conversation. Yeah, I guess not.
What else? You learned something, Emma. Come on. There's
Emma, I'm an inch and a quarter shorter than the last time I was here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You told me.
Yeah, makes a difference.
You're not...
I'm interested. Well, because, the women are hung up on height.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was a 6-footer last time I was here. I had
Yeah.
a terrible car accident. I am 5'11" and a quarter now. So I'm below the line. Probably can't tell the difference, but I don't want to claim I'm 6 feet when I'm not. We'll see.
But they're not going to check.
I'm 4'11" when I'm not.
They don't believe 5'11". They think
don't.
5'11" means 5'9".
Oh, jeez. And their like preferences are at 6 foot, right?
That's
Definitely.
like how the men ever going to stay 6 feet apart? They don't understand what 6 feet is. They'll just do 5'9".
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a little shorter. So this is my first show here as not a 6 foot man. I hope they can't tell. I'll put a cowboy hat on. I'll put some boots on. I feel good.
I won't tell.
I'm fine.
Okay.
I might wear platforms tomorrow. We'll see.
You should. Yeah.
We talked it up today.
We did.
About hoes, the hoe phase. We talked about Dr. Fauci, America's sweetheart.
Corona.
Corona.
I'll ask him about his hoe phase.
Oh, yeah. I learned that Dr. Fauci and Brian went to the same college together.
We went to the same college. When he went there 58 years ago, it was an all-boys school. And those boys used to get, because it was a really good school, at least in that part of the world, there's 7 all-women's colleges in New England. There still are. Mm-hmm. So the boys who went to Holy Cross, my school, would get bussed in every Friday night to hoe it up with the girls. So Fauci definitely had a hoe phase.
Nice.
Definitely.
You heard it here.
That's
on
a
the Great Love Debate.
There's no question
Fauci
in
had a hoe
1962,
Yeah.
Anthony Fauci was hoeing it up all over New England.
So we'll be at Hyenas tomorrow. in
Yep.
Dallas, Mockingbird Station, and you'll be back anyway, right? You'll keep coming
I'm back in
you
the
know?
loop. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's good. I like it here.
It's good to
I got kin here, as they say. I got kinfolk here.
folk.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, thanks a lot for coming by and talking to us.
Thanks for having me, as always.
And we'll see you at the show and see you next time.
GreatLoveDebate.com.
Nice. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Date Podcast. Please subscribe and review if you liked what you hear. Send us an email at hello@datepodcast.com for any questions, comments, or show topics you'd like for us to discuss. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Most importantly, tell your friends about our show.